What is up, everyone? Welcome back to Base Damage. I hope you're all doing well. I wasn't expecting to have to record this today. I legitimately thought that I was just going to be making a post saying, hey, no videos this week, preparing for an event and everything, and then they drop a Banlist update. Just random drops, and of all days, it's on April 1st, so I really, really hope that this doesn't age poorly. If it does, I'm deleting the video. I'm just saying, if they're like all of a sudden going, psych, and I'll delete this. But I figured I needed to do some homework and look at some stuff and make a video about it. So let's go ahead and dive into what changes there were. And just for people who want to know what got changed and why it got changed, we will talk about that. And obviously, I'm going to go into a much deeper dive into my opinions on each of these different changes. So do please stick around for after that as well. So let's just go ahead and talk about what got hit. Obviously, the big thing I feel needed to absolutely be hit was Bang Dream. And we're going to talk about them as well. Bang Dream, oh my goodness, this has been needed because holy crap, it's everywhere. So absolutely something needed to be done. Now, let's discuss what got hit, and then later on in the video, I will talk about was it a good change or not, type deal. So the first one, the big, choose one of three. The big thing was this Sakiko. There is a level 1 combo right here, the Masquerade Obliviones, that I constantly heard people complaining about, oh, my opponent just summons 3 of these every single turn, and she helped facilitate this. Basically, she has an effect at the beginning of your climax phase. You can rest her to basically swap her with one of the level 1 Obliviones in your waiting room to the stage, and the Obliviones gets an extra 1,000 power till end of turn. So you could constantly just refresh your hand, whether you had more copies of the level 1, or just summon as many of these as possible and then just swap back out again, play your climax, go to town, keep doing, rinse and repeat every single turn. So this was really huge. This needed to be addressed in some shape, form, or fashion. The next one was Buns for Luck. And yes, I know this initially was called You Can Do It Bread, but they had to make an errata to where this and the one that has the picture of Sayo on the picture on the event, both of those are the same exact card now. So you can't run, the other one just because it shows this particular picture. Just any Buns for Luck is on this list. And lastly is this level 3 Arisa that I didn't realize was a problem until I went to TCG Player and saw that it was up to almost $150. Oh my goodness. Shout outs to Palmer's Trainer in the Discord. Apparently their wallet suffered greatly because of this. But yeah, this is kind of crazy that it got up this high. I didn't know that it had gotten this expensive. So apparently this was an issue. I was unaware of this, but it's whatever. So this is the first major hit, was Bang Dream needed to be addressed in some shape, form, or fashion. The next one up here we're going to talk about is Overlord. And Overlord changes, once again, a little bit weird. I will go ahead and point out what it was before in the English side. I have to zoom in a little bit, so forgive me. Was initially it was a pick one of 3 of these, basically these same exact cards. It was a choose one of 3 between all 3 of these, as you can see right here, despite how blurry it is. Do please forgive me for that one. But it got changed. So instead of pick one of these 3, the Shaltir and the Yuri are basically both engines to try to get more hand advantage, draw into more cards and stuff like that. And basically, Overlord didn't need those. But these are now on a pick one of 2. You can only do one or the other. And the level 1 Eins that helped facilitate making the level 3 Eins hexproof, unable to be reversed, and all that shenanigans, he got limited to 1 copy, whereas before, the Advantage Engines and the 1/1 were all a pick 1 of 3. This got changed to you can only run a singular copy of this in the deck. So that's kind of a huge thing, but once again, I have opinions. Please stay tuned until afterwards. But also big, see, the other thing, though, for this, though, I realize needs to be discussed really quickly. This is slightly different from the JP side. On the JP side, if I can find it really quickly, on the JP side, it is not a pick one of 3 or whatever. It is the level 1 right that got hit to 1 copy. On the JP side is just outright banned, and it's a pick one of 2 between the level 1 Shaltir drawing engine right here and the level 3 Eins itself. So there is a big difference on that, but anyway, just had to point that out. Nextly is Hololive, and obviously this is probably just going to keep happening for Hololive, and I have a huge thing that I want to go over with Hololive in a little bit here. Y'all know I'm a big proponent of Hololive, and this is just really funny to me. So before it was just a pick one of two with the Luna and the Mia. Here we go. It was just a pick one of two on the English side with the level 3 Luna and the level 0 Mia right here. They added the polka. So this is already kind of a thing in JP. Once again, if we do comparisons on the JP side. So on the JP side, it is a limit of 2 to the Gura, the Ayame's band, and a pick one of 5. 3 of the particular cards, the Luna, the Mio, and the Polka, are also on that pick one of 5. Now, funny enough, English has not adopted the pick one of 5 thing just yet, and I think they're just slowly adding cards to try to hit the 8 standby builds as much as possible. And I understand they probably don't want to have a pick one of 5 anything for any set for the English list, but if it keeps going this way, I can imagine these are probably also going to get eventually added. The 2-1 Kanata and the Hachima Beam, the rest counter, could probably end up getting put in at some point. So the Polka honestly is a very, very strong card. So honestly, this is a huge hit to the 8 standby stuff. So this is pretty significant. We probably won't see this as much going forward. But once again, things I want to talk about, point out. So lastly, this was not expecting this in the year of our Lord 2026 for them to change up what they did with Alice. For Alice, the 2-1, which is this one here on the left, was restricted to 2 copies, as you can see right here, was only restricted to 2 copies. Whereas on the JP side, you only had the other cards on it got taken off, they're all unbanned, and just the level 1 Brainstormer Alice that can summon the 2-1 is outright banned. So they decided to also copy the JP side on this finally, because before, this just being at 2 copies was just kind of weird. You still just couldn't really play the deck at all. But, obviously this 1-0 made it very unfair, because you could consistently, at level 1, just summon a wall of these and just sit on them for multiple turns. In Climax combo, basically every single turn, and it was crazy. So, this getting hit to just outright banned, honestly, I feel is what they should have done to begin with. I had other opinions when it initially happened, and it initially got announced that they were hitting the SAO deck. For understandable reasons, this deck was very rampant. But I didn't feel that Limit 2 was necessary, and honestly, I can kind of understand this and get behind this. So the 1-0 getting hit, so you could still play the 2-1. Honestly, that's fair. I think this is a very fair hit. Really, really cool there. And this does go into effect May the 1st. I'm assuming this will probably go into effect before Worlds. I'm not certain on the exact date for Worlds just yet, but that is a major thing to keep in mind for that. So, because my head's covering it up now, But that is basically the update. So if that's all you were here for and you just wanted to figure out what had happened, what changes there were, that's it for now. So from this point on, I'm going to go into a good bit of my opinion and discussion on what was a good hit, what was a bad hit, and stuff like that. But if you were just here for that, thank you very much for stopping by. Please hit the subscribe button and like on your way out the door. We do greatly appreciate that. All right, so let's get into the discussion. Obviously, like I said, the Arisa was kind of crazy. But the thing I kind of want to talk about first is the fact of the Oblivionis hit. With the Bang Dream hit, this is kind of interesting because these are 2 really big utility pieces, and I do feel they needed to be addressed in some shape, form, or fashion. I'm not going to deny that at all. I do feel it needed to be addressed, but also I almost think you could still play the deck. Like if you had God's Strongest Soldier, as much as Overlord was hit, Overlord was still topping recently and still has won, I think, 2 regionals this season. Even with the pick one of 3 here, it was still getting run. You lose out on some major utility pieces, yes, there's no denying that. But if someone still wanted to run the deck, you could. You could still very easily run the deck and just focus on the Sakiko. Or if there was, I'd have to do some research, and forgive me if I don't know off the top of my head, maybe someone can comment down below. If there's another card in Bang Dream, and there's multiple sets of Bang Dream, let's keep that in mind too. There's a lot of cards to pick from. If there's something that's very generic that can just grab, like a helmet character, like a level 0 that says sack itself and discard a card to salvage back a character, you could basically just still run those. I mean, this was obviously the better card to run, obviously, but you could just run those in place of the level 1 Sakiko and then still have your option between Buns for Luck, which is probably going to be the pick there, and the Arisa to Fumio people. Like, I completely understand, like, if you wanted to just rock the Sakiko and just keep that consistency going at the risk of no longer having your little tech pieces like this, which that's whatever. But I want to see what people would cook, because I will completely admit I'm not a Bang Dream player. I just can see, as big of a set as Bang Dream is, I think there's cards that could replace this level 1. So we probably will still see the Bang Dream deck, the Oblivionis plus whatever top end. I think we're still going to see that, and we're still going to see that come out quite a bit. It just hopefully isn't as much. Maybe there'll be players that see this and kind of back off a little bit, and that's totally fair. That's totally understandable. In fact, I do want to go over another thing for the discussion portion of this, where Intern Kun had obviously stated their opinions and everything of why they hit what they hit, and I do want to go over that as well. So I brought that up, and I do want to read that off. So let's go into this as we continue looking at each of the sets. So updates, restricted list goes into effect May 1st. With the effect from May 1st, Weiss Schwarz will be updating the restriction list to maintain a healthy tournament environment. The following restrictions will apply for all official tournaments. It talks about the hits, and the note from Intern Kun specifically says, as much as we love bread, which is obviously referring to the Buns for Luck, having lucky buns for every meal does get quite tiring. Bang Dream has amassed a win rate over 60% throughout the Bushiroad Championship Series, which is the singles, appearing in nearly a quarter of top cut games. And honestly, more than that, you don't need me to show you all the different tournaments that they have dominated. Let's be real. It's been kind of crazy. That being said, no wonder our events were starting to resemble bakeries. Better to taste like, bread in there than, people who don't know how to shower. Now that the yeast has settled, you'll have to choose between the consistency of setting up your level 1 combo or your stock swappers. Or your Fumio. So one stock swapper. Once again, they're not really addressing the Fumio hit in here, which is kind of funky. It's not addressed whatsoever, whatever. This should help cut the carbohydrate intake just a little while ensuring Bang Dream fans are able to continue jamming out with their favorite bands and the plethora of strong utility cards available. There is no denying that these are very, very strong utility cards. However, I also don't think this hit could have been a lot harder. But once again, they own the right. Bushiroad owns the rights to Bang Dream. There's more Bang Dream sets coming up. I think they more just wanted to kind of give it a slap on the wrist. And so that way people can still go, oh, there's these other cards coming down the pipeline. Here's some other consistency pieces we can still use for the deck. Oh, I can still use my Buns for Luck, type deal. I don't know exactly, but once again, I don't think they're going to hit this as hard. I think this hit is more just to satiate the players, to be like, hey, we did something. You see what we did? But once again, they're going to have, it's their baby. They're absolutely going to make it so you want to buy the Bang Dream cards more than anything. So anyway, point being, that's it for that. Now let's go over to Overlord. So once again, for the Overlord, the level 1 was hit to 1 copy. So the Intern Kun notes was, while Nazarick Tomb of the Undead has enjoyed great success with over 60% win rate, its low usage rate indicates that players are exceptionally skilled at navigating the depths of the Great Tomb of Nazarick. So that kind of goes back to my initial point of they did the choose 1 of 3, and it really didn't feel like it hit anything. Like, once again, kind of a slap on the wrist, because people were immediately just kind of changing up their ratios. And yes, you saw less of the deck, 1,000%. Like, once again, it's very, very true. You did see a lesser amount. But I also think you haven't seen as much Overlord as you had Bang Dream. I really, really think the representation of how many people were playing Overlord versus what it's won is highly different from Bang Dream. Granted, I'm glad they did something to try to address it, which is cool, but let's continue reading. That said, we've noted the general experience playing against the deck is far from what one could categorize as fun. This is very correct. If you just get your whole field nuked by Einz, it sucks. With both of these factors in mind, we've sharpened our shearing tools to shear off some wool from our black little goats. Once again, if you really, really wanted to do that, I can understand on the English side where they don't want to nuke a deck unless it really, really calls for it. And there are decks that warrant a nuking, 1000%. But there's also ones where you want to slow it down instead of just, taking it to Pound Town. This is really crazy. But see, here's the other thing. With the updated restrictions, we'll be giving out less gifts. Einz will be giving out less gifts, and we hope this change reduces the overall consistency of the deck by making it harder to set him up. So here's the thing. You made it so you couldn't run this with the 2 advantage engines. I really think if people really wanted to try, I think you could just still summon this, and then just you could still run the 1 copy of this, and then probably still run, I think, the Yuri if you had to pick one of these 2, because this deals damage to yourself, and Overlord really doesn't want to deal damage to itself if it can help it. But I think the on-play effect of draw 2, pitch 2, and you get to filter. It basically pays for its own summoning, so it's essentially free. So, and then it's still a very big body if you need to be able to do, like try to get over some bigger characters or whatever, and just try to have a little bit more of a board presence. The fact that it pays for itself is kind of nuts. So, this particular thing right here, where now they can use the Yuri again, is kind of interesting. I'm very curious to see what people are going to cook up for that, because now it's like, okay, cool. You took away these before. Now they have access to one of these again. They got to pick one or the other. I think they're going to pick the Yuri, but now the Overlord players have access to these again. And I really, really think you can probably just make certain that you get the 1, you summon it, and you go to town. I really think you can still do it, but once again, we shall see as time goes on. All right, so I'm going to make a quick note on we're actually going to talk about the SAO thing again. So we're going to go to SAO really quickly here, where they admit we're updating our restrictions to match the Japanese edition. So this whole thing of them trying to match the Japanese edition, once again, it feels weird that they're hitting certain things but not hitting other things. And this was very warranted. This was very understandable. I do think this was the right thing to do. Now, I kind of want to go back to Bang Dream for just a half second. I'm going to rant about Hololive for a hot minute. Let me have this. With this, it feels weird. I almost feel, even on the JP side, it feels weird for this to be a thing. On the English side, I feel like Bushiroad, that when they're coming up with the ban list for the English side, they're hipsters. They don't like to always follow the same thing that everyone else is doing, if you catch my drift. They typically don't like copying the JP ban list. They typically don't like copying it, so they typically try to do something else. And obviously for a long time, English didn't even have a ban list. Thank you, Batman Ninja. But being able to try to do your own thing, I can understand them wanting to do that. I can understand them wanting to have okay, our English version is a little bit more unique, type thing. They don't want to have it just be the same hits. But at the same time, there are certain hits on the JP side that have made way more sense than what the English does. Example, case in point, being Slime. I'm going to bring up Slime because I feel that they've done stuff in English. They could have done something to hit the deck a little bit harder. Anyway, that being, looking at Slime, you have this huge hit because you can just like this, you could set up a wall. Muron, you were able to set up a wall with hexproof, which is a different thing altogether. I really feel if they really wanted to hit in a different way, they've done this before with Slime. Whereas before, instead of hitting the Shuna and the Muron on the same pick one of anything list. On the English side, they did this instead, which was putting the level 1 that outright searches the Muron on a pick one of 3. This card is dead, and there's obviously people who are like, oh, but you could use it to color fix and put specific things into your into your clock for leveling, whatever. That's not the point of the card. You wouldn't run the card for that. You ran the card because you wanted to be able to use, oh, this level 1 just goes cool. Pitch a character, or pitch a card, no, just pitch a character to just straight up search your level 2 combo and summon it that way. Like, that's what it was run for. You can't convince me otherwise. Let's be real. So that, like, if you really wanted to be a hipster and be like that, I feel they could have done the same thing here and then make it so, oh, this and the Masquerade Obliviones are on the same pick one of 3. And even then, even further beyond, put that, and maybe like, obviously, Buns for Luck still. I like I said, I don't know about the Arisa hit. That's kind of weird, whatever. But do this, but like, and maybe instead of Arisa, you put the Masquerade Obliviones. Like, they've done it before with Muron of, oh, then the card's dead. Oh, then the level 1 is dead. Cool. So was this. This is a dead card now. So unless you're doing some really funny shenanigans of just, oh, I just wanted a beat stick that, has Clock Encore from Waiting Room. Yeah, sure, go for it. I don't care. But I almost wanted to see that instead, because once again, you could just put something else in this slot. If you don't make it so you can't use this with the Masquerade Obliviones, it feels like some people are still going to be able to play. Like, still be able to play the deck, and you're still going to see a lot of it. But once again, this is a slap on the wrist. This is not a, like, taking it out behind the barn and going Old Yeller. All right, enough on that. We're gonna leave all that behind. We're not gonna talk about that anymore. So, going to the Hololive restriction, I feel this is so weird. I'm gonna go back a little bit further in time to when they were talking about the updated list, or when they were gonna do a restriction list back in February, and they had little notes of things that were on a watch list. There's a watch list also for this new one. But this specifically, like, saying, Hololive production has made a surprising resurgence in recent times, although most decks don't seem to have gone the distance, enough to have made it into Top Cut for us to notice. More on that in a minute here. Despite being an older series, it seems its most dedicated players have been talented enough to keep it thriving. With a potential metagame shift coming soon, we'll continue to keep an eye on the title. And they did, and it got hit. Totally fair. Totally warranted. Like this, I understand why this got hit. That's cool. I'm going to go over here to their notes on here. So that was from before, where they're like, hey, we're keeping an eye on certain sets. Here's the next one, where it says intern Kun note for the Hololive restriction, despite being older sets. Once again, this is kind of mirroring the previous one. With a title this diverse, it's also worrying us that a large majority of decks have since pivoted towards the same package. The same package. Meaning, like, oh, there's a lot of decks that have pivoted towards these package cards. Like, okay, that's kind of funky. We're adding one new card to the existing choice restrictions in a bid to reduce the deck's ability to cycle through bad deck states. Sure. But when it says same package here, which I'm going to address in here, like, this is specifically just running standby. This is specifically a standby only card in terms of what you are going to be using it for. And I have receipts for this. This is where I ended up doing a lot of research, because I'm going to do a comparison here between Hololive and the new deck on the watch list, because I complained a lot before that there was no talk of Nikkei at all. There was no talk of any watching for Nikkei. I feel Nikkei needed to have also gotten some kind of slap on the wrist, some kind of hit in some shape, form, or fashion. And I'm going to show you the fucking numbers to prove it. Where it says, watch list. Goddess of Victory Nikkei continues to enjoy a high usage rate and has also seen increased win rate as the circuit progressed. That said, we feel the so-called pile deck relies heavily on player skill, and from our personal testing, feels like a fair deck. Okay. We'll continue monitoring the situation and consider restrictions if the win rate of the deck continues to creep upwards. Here's the thing. Hololive is getting hit. Let's look at the Hololive numbers. This is mainly hitting what I'm about to show you is a fraction of like what decks are popping up. Yes, the 8 standby is rampant. Yes, it's in a lot of different tournaments. But I went through Weiss Tea Time, and yes, I have the numbers. I have the receipts, boy. Because I wanted to take a look at this, and I wanted to do my own little research here. So I pulled up a notepad document, and I started fucking counting. So I went through all of the tops in BCS 2025-2026 and wrote down every single Hololive deck that topped, that got into Top Cut or won. And I made note of all of it. We had Sora Mume, Oski Polka, Oski Choco, which is the big one. And obviously this hit mainly affects the standby variants, which we will talk about. Shion Aqua, Oski Gura, Miko Sora Marin, Kanata Marin, Kiara Muna, Watame Marin, Kali Gura, Mume Rushia. There's a lot more up here than just the 8 standby package, but 8 standby is what's being targeted. Understandably so. Like I'm not denying that. That being said, obviously a lot of people who don't understand Hololive or don't know of all these decks from Hololive, they're going to look at this and go, I don't understand what's going on. So I did break it down a little bit easier. Of the different 8 standby variants, which because there are several up here, Polka Choco, Polka Nene, watch me whip, watch me Polka Nene, Oski Polka and the Oski Choco are like the 2 biggest offenders of this. There are 13 standby variants in all the ones that topped, all the ones that won, all the ones that topped and everything. 13 of 28 decks that popped up of all the ones that topped, 13 of them, over half of them, or almost half of them, were an 8 standby variant. So this is understandable as to why this hit happened. But there were also a lot of other ones. There was 15 other ones that this doesn't do anything to address those. This doesn't do anything to address the 8 standby variants. In fact, you have multiple ones that are running Gura, which is still limited to 2 copies. So, kind of weird there. And I obviously went through and counted up everything. The total number of Hololive decks that were played in 2025-2026 as of the showing of this, because we are missing some of the representation list for a couple of them, because I think Jakarta hasn't even been posted yet on Weiss Tea Time as of the recording of this. 161 decks were Hololive in some shape, form, or fashion, whether they topped or not. And this number is going to be higher, right? And even let's take a look at Pasadena. I made a note that in Pasadena, out of 219 players, which is huge, Pasadena is almost always a very huge regionals for us, 27 of them were Hololive. That is a 12% representation for the thing. That's huge, right? Totally understandable. And there were several decks that won. The main thing, obviously, was the one singular Oski Choco deck won in Duluth. Really cool. Really awesome there. The Pekora Kanata Marin won in Germany this year. Congrats. Awesome. Sehr gut. So 2 times Hololive has won. A lot of decks have been represented, right? Right. It got a hit. But it also has a huge variety of different decks. And not all the ones that were standby focused were running these cards. The Polka in and of itself, that was added to the pick 1 of 3, added to the pick 1 of 2, now a pick 1 of 3. There was only one non-8 standby deck that was running the Polka, and it was just one random Miko Sora Marin deck was running a singular copy of the Polka. That card wasn't getting that, it wasn't getting that much mileage. It wasn't being run in anything that wasn't a standby variant, other than the one deck. So 14 of the 28 decks were running it in some capacity. But once again, this was obviously highly targeted to one of the deck types that was shown the most, okay? Okay, so I'm gonna show you. I'm gonna bring this over here, all the way over here, so you can see the visuals yourself. Because I'm about to blow your fucking mind. I'm about to blow your absolute fucking mind here. Where the fuck is Nikkei on this list if we're looking at 161 decks, 2 times its 1, multiple different variants? If Nikkei has more, Nikkei has bigger numbers. And get this, of the variety here for Hololive, I counted every single fucking Nikkei deck that showed up in singles for 2025, 2026. Other than the one deck list that it just didn't say what the fuck the deck was, but I'm assuming it was, 20 of the decks that topped were Modernia Biscuit. There were no other tops that were shown because, once again, there's no representation list for Rosemont, Philadelphia, Australia, and Jakarta results haven't even been posted yet. So these numbers are probably higher. I'm assuming one or the other, either Hololive or Nikkei, is allowed in Jakarta. One of the two. But you have total number of Nikkei decks used, 179. That is a bigger number than the 161 over here. So you have more Nikkei decks, and more are winning. In Rosemont, Malaysia, Greece, and Australia were all won by a Modernia Biscuit deck. Okay, Hololive has 2 wins. Count them. 2 wins. Modernia Biscuit has 4 wins under its belt. Has more deck representation. Even in Pasadena that we were talking about, 29 of the 219 total players at Pasadena were playing Nikkei. 13% of them versus Hololive's 12%. It was just as much representation. And I'm gonna go back even further. We're gonna fucking take a look at teams, because I have the teams back here as well on Weiss Tea Time. And I'm not going to go through and count every single one of these because I don't have to. Weiss Tea Time is awesome, and they've already counted everything for us. So across all of teams, they counted how many decks had some kind of Nikkei representation. Obviously, Bunny Girl Senpai's been hit. Ignore all that. The 2 that we're going to look at is Hololive, right smack dab here. You see it? 24 teams had Hololive decks. Okay. And obviously a lot of them are going to be the standby variant. Goddess of Victory Nikkei had 62, almost triple. You're still a little bit off there, but I mean, even by the percentage of decks, you have 5.97%, whatever, 5% versus 15%. You might as well say triple the numbers. I realize 24 times 3 is 72. I realize that's a different number altogether. Whatever. I'm just looking at the Weiss Tea Time made this, not me. Point being, 46, almost half of the teams were in all of the team season were running Nikkei. 179 people over the course of the entirety for singles were running Nikkei. And it was just the one deck for singles. Obviously for teams it was a little bit more varied. You had the casino rabbits, you had the Dorothy shenanigans. Shout outs to Joker. I know he was on the Dorothy stuff as well. But by comparison for Hololive, all of teams for Hololive was like only about 18%. Which is still a lot of decks, don't get me wrong. It's obviously in the top 5 for a reason. It's seen a lot. But Nikkei's on a watch list versus Hololive got another hit. Admittedly so, once again, Gura shenanigans, I understand it getting hit. Whatever, you can agree or disagree with me, that's whatever. But the numbers do not lie when it's a matter of representation on both sides, a variety of different decks on Hololive versus one singular fucking deck. One singular deck that, you know, they're like this so-called pile deck. Like, okay, cool, it's a fucking pile deck, whatever you want to call it. Like, but call a spade a spade. It's getting run like hell. It's getting run everywhere. But you know why it's not going to get hit just yet? You know why it's not going to get hit just yet? Because it's Volume 2. Volume 2 is right around the corner, and it's not going to get touched until Volume 2 drops so people invest? And why hit a set that's about to have another release? And hell, I probably need to check and see if they've actually like made an announcement for when Volume 2 is supposed to drop. To my knowledge, as of the recording of this, there isn't an update. But also, look at this as well. Look, Bang Dream 10th Anniversary also coming soon. Why hit your, Bang Dream deck super hard? No, give it a little slap on the wrist and call it a day. Hit Hololive, sure. But I think Hololive is going to start getting more hits because they probably don't have any more sets like lined up for it. Hololive has its own card game now that I'm certain they would rather players pivot more towards playing the other card game as opposed to playing it over in Weiss. They would rather people probably pick up different decks for Weiss, which is whatever. That's totally fine. But, Bang Dream's not going to get hit that hard other than a slap on the wrist, in my opinion. Like I said, I'm certain an argument can be made for, this is like the most amazing thing since hot sliced bread, buns for luck, jokes. Anyway, but in terms of what is on the watch list, what is getting hit, the watch list doesn't pertain to what they said at the beginning. Once again, a healthy tournament environment. It's not targeting a healthy tournament environment. It's targeting what's going to get sales. Let's be real. Call a spade a spade. I'm just being real here. If you think wrong, you're don't be an idiot, man. Don't be a sheep. Don't be a goat, because of the black goats with the irons, right? But I'm just saying, you have I understand their reasonings behind stuff. I'm not arguing with a lot of the reasonings. I think there's other things that could have been done, but I'm not hating on them. The only thing that I'm not liking is that there was not some kind of hit to Nikkei. And obviously, it's not the end of the world, sure. It's just something that I felt needed being pointed out. Because Hololive's getting targeted because there's probably no other Hololive sets that are going to be announced anytime soon. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong, and I'm happy to get more Hololive. Please, Bushi, in this particular situation, prove me wrong. Give me more Hololive in Weiss. I want more. I'm just saying. But they probably won't. They're probably not going to do anything else with a Hololive in Weiss because they don't have any plans to make any more sets. So it's like, cool, we can just start nuking it. Go for it. Eventually we may have the pick 1 of 5, whatever. There's plenty of other decks. As you can see, there are plenty of other decks that can be run outside of the standby variants. So it's not going to kill Hololive. It's just going to kill the one deck. Versus, I legitimately think, Volume 2 is probably going to have, of Nikkei, is probably going to have something that upgrades Modernia Biscuit for a hot minute. And if we don't see something happen to that, if we don't see something get hit in some shape, form, or fashion with Nikkei, we're going to have the same situation here that we had with Bang Dream. With look, 8 of the top 16 are all nothing but Bang Dream decks and shit like that. Like you don't want that. You do not want to see that kind of, once again, you want a healthy tournament environment. You kind of have to preemptively hit a couple things, but they're not going to because they don't want to interrupt the sales. Anyway, that's just my 2 cents. Like I said, I'm glad that there is some kind of hit. I'm glad that stuff has been done, and I'd love to see what people can cook up for SAO. 100%. I feel that I would love to see some people running this. I know people were already talking about it in the Base Damage Discord, so it was really cool. But we'll see what happens. I'd love to see what happens going forward with Hololive, with Bang Dream, Overlord, and obviously SAO. So we shall see. And also, Nikkei is on the watch list. Let's see what happens. They're probably just going to get a slap on the wrist, if anything. So that is it for me today. Thank you very much for watching. I do greatly appreciate you. And as always, feel free to like, comment, subscribe. If you want to join the Discord, links in the description. Stay safe. And remember, as always, to stay based.